And we are back. But since we are a weekly news show talking about the events that happened, a few other events happened at the RNC last week that we didn't get a chance to address from the Republican National Convention. Those included Ivanka Trump's speech at the RNC, Donald Trump Jr.'s speech at the RNC, Eric Trump's speech at the RNC, and the one person that almost got booed off the stage, but considering he is unbooable off of anything, Alan Moore's favorite senator, Ted Cruz. Alan Moore, what were the takeaways from any of those speeches? Who was your favorite? Who was your least favorite?
So I think it helped Donald Trump that his four oldest children. He has a fifth. He has a son with Melania, who's just a teenager. But his three oldest children, all in their 30s, I think, and then he's got a 22-year-old daughter who we know very little about. The four of them spoke. Ivanka was the most polished. She actually introduced her father, and I thought acquitted herself quite well in talking about him.
She also hawked her dress, which is part of her clothing line, after the speech.
Hey, once a Trump, always a Trump. She talked about growing up, going to construction sites, talking to construction workers, being in a company where there are more women executives than there are men. I mean, she touched on some points that speak to areas of weakness for Trump or question about Trump, concern about Trump, and she did it quite well. And then he came out. They're obviously very fond of each other, and I think the same is true with the two boys. They're a little slick, but hey, they're not used to standing up there in front of tens of thousands of people and an audience of millions of people. I think for Trump, who's such a strange guy by himself, to humanize him with grown-up children who can put words together and deliver a speech was helpful to him, because you sometimes wonder how a guy who's so narcissistic and all about himself, where are his touchstones to the real world? And I think it was helpful for his kids to speak, and they spoke on 3 separate nights, so it wasn't all at one point in time.
Well, I agree with you about the woman. What was her name? The one that
Ivanka.
I thought that was a very effective speech, and I'm thinking about
that's it. I thought she sounded like a Democrat during her speech, but that was just me.
Well, the point is that what Trump needs to do is to get some people that aren't already in the base in order to be able to win this election. And I thought her speech, reached out and broadened the possible acceptance of Trump in the general public. Whereas was it Eric, who I thought was a twit.
I would tend to agree. Eric Trump's speech sounded like RNC talking points.
Yeah, and I think it probably went over very well with Trump's base, but I didn't see it in reaching out to expand the support for Trump. It was a little arrogant, and the manner of delivery, I think, hurt the message.
Yeah, I would absolutely tend to agree. Ivanka Trump I tend to give children of politicians a pretty generous pass. Their principal goal is to say that their parents are good people, they were good parents, and we love them very much. And with the exception of Eric Trump, I thought both Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka did a great job. Ivanka in particular, making her dad sound like a human being, saying that he was most comfortable talking to the actual guy, the working guys on the ground, people who actually have calluses on their hand because they actually work for a living. something that might actually be helpful to Donald Trump if he were able to actually convey that without talking about his billions. That might actually change his perception, but his daughter, I thought, did that very effectively.
We haven't talked about Ted Cruz. It was an interesting decision that the Trump operation made in giving Cruz some prime time to speak. When they offered it, it was not clear whether or not he would actually endorse Donald Trump, and Cruz decided not to endorse in any way, shape, or form.
But he didn't actually say anything negative against the nominee.
What he said was that you should vote your conscience. It triggered a huge negative reaction inside the hall, including from the Texas folks. And he is the senator. He is the junior senator from Texas. He pissed off a lot of people in that room who thought, wait a minute, you're given this time, you're up there talking to the country, and you're not going to be able to say that your preference in this election is our candidate. And towards the end of his speech, they were saying, do it, say it. He never said it. And there was a lot of anger and pushback. Now, as we all know, there's a great tendency in politics to get excited and draw huge conclusions about something that happens in the moment. A day, a week, a month later, people say, what? What was that again that he did? What happened? There were people who said, oh, the Republicans aren't going to forget this. The Texas Republicans won't forget his disloyalty, his ingratitude to getting this opportunity. I don't know. He's not a likable guy. That's not news.
That's one.
And so you don't necessarily expect him to be classy and grateful, or to put his ambitions aside. So it ended up being a controversial moment, a bad moment for Cruz, a reminder that there are deep divisions still among Republicans.
And I don't think it hurt Donald Trump any.
I don't think it hurt Trump. I think in a way it kind of helped him, because he's the one. They said, well, let's let him speak, and supposedly he told Trump that afternoon or ahead of time, see, I'm not actually going to endorse you. And now Trump says,
well, Trump made his entrance again during the speech.
He says, yeah, he made his entrance during the speech and just looked grim-faced, and then afterwards said, yeah, who cares if he endorses him? In fact, I don't want his endorsement. I won't accept his endorsement. I didn't realize that one had the capacity to reject an endorsement. But the issue lingers, and there will be lingering bad blood there.
That said, you will hear words from my mouth that you will likely never hear again. In defense of Ted Cruz, he did say after the speech he's not in the habit of endorsing people who insult his wife and his father. Is there any credibility to that statement for why he chose to do what he did?
Well, it's not just that. It's Donald Trump calling him Lion Ted over and over and over again. The insult to the wife was stupid, and Trump acknowledged it was a mistake, and it didn't help Trump in any way. In a way, it kind of created a little sympathy towards Cruz and his wife. So they, in an odd way, Trump's stupidity in insulting him by retweeting some competing pictures, and then pretending